In the earliest layers of ancient Egyptian religion, the heart, the EB, carried a meaning that went far beyond flesh and blood. It held the person together from the inside. People treated it as the seat of thinking, not the brain. It stored memory. It shaped temperament. In other words, the heart did not just keep someone alive, it explained who they were. That belief changed the way a life made sense. Choices did not simply happen and disappear. They left marks inside the IB. What someone remembered, what they regretted, what they planned, even what they silently wanted, all belonged to that inner center. Character lived there. Responsibility lived there. So when Egyptians talked about a person's real self, they pointed inward to the heart because it carried the evidence of a lifetime. And that had a consequence. If the heart held thought, memory, and character, then it also held truth. Not a truth spoken for show, but the kind that formed under the skin over years. The heart became a record that could not be easily edited. That idea planted a dangerous possibility. Even if the body failed, the heart's contents still mattered. What it contained could follow a person. As Egyptian ideas about the afterlife grew more detailed, death stopped looking like an ending and started looking like a passage. Something of the person still needed to function on the other side. The heart filled that role. It did not simply decay and disappear. It endured. And because it carried a person's mind and character, it also carried their history. What you did in life did not vanish. It traveled with you. That change brought a new pressure. If the heart survived, it could also be called forward, not as a symbol, but as a witness. In the next world, the dead did not only need food, safety, and proper burial. They needed to answer for themselves. The heart became the piece of you that could be summoned and examined. It held memories. It held choices. It held the reasons behind them. So the afterlife started to include accountability. A life left a record, and the record sat inside the chest. In this belief, the heart could be brought out and made to face what it knew. That idea changed everything. Morality stopped being only about how you were buried. It became about how you lived. Because in the end, the heart survived, and it could be required to speak. As mummification became central to a proper burial, embalmers faced a practical question with a spiritual answer. Many organs got removed, treated separately and stored away for protection, but the heart usually stayed. That choice mattered. Egyptians treated the heart as the person's inner self, not a spare part. If the body went forward into the afterlife without it, something essential went missing. So the embalming process built around a rule: preserve the heart where it belonged, inside the chest. It was not about convenience. It was about identity. The dead person needed their heart to remain recognizable as themselves, with their memory and character intact. The heart was expected to endure when the rest of life stopped. It carried the record that no one else could carry. And there was a second reason, sharper and more urgent. The heart was needed for judgment. In the next world, the person did not simply arrive and get accepted. They faced a test tied to who they had been. The heart served as the key piece of evidence because it held their truth. Keeping it inside the mummy prepared the deceased for that moment. Then, the afterlife stopped feeling like a simple continuation of funeral work and started looking like a trial. Egyptians described a place called the Hall of Two Truths, where the dead no longer depended only on proper burial to be safe. A person arrived there to be checked, not comforted. It meant a new rule existed. Survival after death required more than wrapping, prayers, and a sealed tomb. Inside this vision of judgment, the dead faced divine scrutiny in an organized way. The gods did not just receive offerings, they evaluated a life. The idea carried pressure. If a person had believed that careful rites guaranteed peace, the Hall of Two Truths challenged that. It suggested that the afterlife had standards, and those standards reached past appearances into behavior, choices, and responsibility. This hall turned morality into procedure. The dead had to present themselves as someone who belonged in order, not chaos. Every step implied that truth existed as something measured and confirmed, not simply claimed. The consequence felt stark. A beautiful burial could not hide a corrupt life. Judgment had a setting, an audience and rules, and the deceased entered it carrying the one thing that mattered most, their own record. In the Hall of Two Truths, judgment did not stay vague or symbolic. It reached a single, decisive test. A scale stood at the center, and the heart became the evidence. On one side, the person's own heart carried the full weight of a lifetime. On the other, a single feather represented Ma'at, the standard of truth and moral order. Balance mattered. Everything turned on it. This weighing did not ask what the family claimed or what a tomb promised. It measured what the person carried inside. If the heart matched the feather, it showed a life that fit the world's rules as the gods understood them. Not perfection, but alignment. The scale turned private choices into a public result. The heart, once hidden in the chest, became a verdict you could not argue with. The logic felt simple and brutal. Truth had weight, and the heart revealed it. A steady balance meant the person belonged with Ma'at and order held. Any pull-off center meant something had gone wrong, somewhere, sometime, and the mistake stayed attached to the heart itself. This moment forced an outcome, not a discussion. The Egyptians treated it as the point where the afterlife stopped being hoped for and started being decided. Once the weighing began, the heart did not just sit there like a silent object. It carried a reputation. It held what a person had really meant, not only what they had shown. And that created a new fear. If the heart could be called as evidence, it could also act like a witness. It could turn inward and then outward and bring hidden things into the open. In that logic, a person's best cover stories ended with their last breath. Private grudges, secret thefts, cruel thoughts never spoken aloud, all stayed stored in the same place that kept memories. After death, that storage became a threat. The heart could reveal what the mouth never admitted. It could point to motives, not just actions. Nothing stayed safely buried inside a person anymore. That possibility changed the whole meaning of judgment. The danger was not only punishment for a known crime, it was exposure. The dead could be trapped by their own inner record, with no way to argue it down. Even a life that looked clean from the outside could fail under this kind of testimony, because the heart did not only weigh truth, it could speak it, and it could speak against its owner. Once people accepted that the heart could betray them, a problem appeared. How did anyone protect themselves from their own inner witness? The answer did not come from force, but from ritual language. Funerary magic stepped in as a kind of legal defense, prepared in advance. Words were treated as tools that shaped outcomes. If the heart could speak, then words could speak back. This was where the Book of the Dead mattered. It offered sets of spells meant to be used at the moment of judgment, like a script for surviving the trial. One of the most pointed was spell 30B, aimed directly at the heart. It worked on a simple idea. The heart needed persuading. It had to stay loyal, and it had to stay quiet when accusation would destroy everything. Spell 30B asked the heart not to stand up as a witness against its owner, not to turn evidence into a verdict. It tried to bind the heart to the person's identity so it could not suddenly act as an enemy in court. This did not erase wrongdoing. It tried to control what could be said about it. In that system, salvation depended on testimony, and testimony could be managed. Words alone did not feel like enough. If the heart might still turn against its owner, people wanted something they could place, touch, and trust. They used heart scarabs, small amulets shaped like a beetle, and set them directly on the chest, close to the heart kept inside the body. The goal stayed simple. The heart needed to stay steady. It needed to stay quiet when judgment came. These scarabs often carried carved writing on the flat underside. The message repeated the same request found in the funerary spells. The heart should not rise up as a witness, should not accuse, should not tip the balance. The amulet acted like a physical version of that command. It did not replace the text. It locked it into place, pressed against the body as if the words could hold. Ritual then tied everything together. The spell gave the instruction, the engraving made it permanent, and the placement on the chest made it personal. All three worked as one strategy aimed at a single threat, a heart that told the truth too loudly. In life, the heart carried thoughts and choices. After death, it carried evidence. The scarab tried to manage that evidence before it spoke. In later centuries, the judgment scene did not fade away. It travelled. As more people wanted the same protection once reserved for elites, the drama of the heart and the scales appeared in more burials, in more places, in more versions. The core idea stayed firm. The dead faced a test, and the heart mattered. But the way people prepared for that moment adapted to new tastes, new budgets, and new politics. Foreign rule reshaped Egypt again and again, and the old beliefs adjusted without disappearing. Names and artistic styles shifted, yet the promise remained. Order could be proven and truth could be measured. Texts circulated in copied bundles, written for individuals, then tucked beside the dead. The same key spells followed them, warning that the heart could still turn dangerous, and insisting that it had to be managed, not merely honoured. That long afterlife of the tradition left a trail that people could later find. Tomb walls repeated the courtroom and the scales. Papyri preserved the instructions step by step. Amulets, especially heart scarabs, carried short commands meant to hold the heart steady at the worst moment. Over time, the judgment drama became something like a package, image, text, and object working together, and that package endured, waiting to be uncovered. In the modern world, the heart worked like a pump. It pushed blood, kept the body alive, then stopped. It did not remember. It did not judge. In a lab, it offered rhythms and electrical signals, not confessions. That difference mattered because it changed what death could mean. For ancient Egyptians, the heart carried the person. For people today, it carried circulation. And yet, their older idea did not disappear just because science explained the organ. It survived in what they left behind. Texts described a heart that could be called forward and held responsible. Spells tried to control it. Amulets tried to quiet it. Archaeology uncovered those choices in real objects, made by real hands, for real fear. Their heart did not testify in a court of law, but it still recorded their values. The weighing of the heart remained the clearest summary of that whole system. A single test turned private life into public truth. What someone did, what they hid, what they became. Even now, that image kept working on people because it asked a simple question with a hard edge. What weighed more, a life or a standard? The ancient heart never spoke aloud to us. It still spoke through what they built around it.